Hey, didn't see you there. No, it's fine. I was just trying to make sure my Chinese-built RC airplane-powered AliExpress bought paramotor is ready to fly. I did find a few strange things that needed to be changed first, though. Oh, you want to know more? Fantastic. Come over here. I'll show you what I did. Safety is priority number one when flying, so I'm going to show you what I did to this paramotor in order of how important it is for your safety. Most important, number one, the shoulder straps could be uncinched by sitting in the seat. Yeah, that was bad. So this strap is what you actually hang from. And I'm changing these carabiners, by the way. I don't care if they say they hold 18 kilonewtons. I don't know this brand. But that's where you hang from. But you're held in by this separate shoulder strap. And this separate shoulder strap has your typical line that goes down to the seatboard. It's adjustable here with your usual tension tightening buckle thing. We've all seen these. But then it also had one of these press to release cinch strap attachments down at the bottom, which meant that when you go to sit in it and the seat rolls forward, this flips out, and the button for this was right here. So effectively what you're doing is when you sat in it, probably one time out of three when I sat in it, my leg would hit the button and loosen my shoulder straps just by sitting down. So that is absolutely not okay. And really, I just looped the webbing through, and I mean I'm no seamstress, but that is 9 total zigzag passes of a single needle polyester sewing machine. That's not going anywhere. And even if that does go somewhere, this will still hold me in because this is doubled over from the factory, so that's not sliding back through. But that is a major, major oversight. You should not have a adjustment buckle at both ends. Certainly not at the end that is most likely to be kicked and messed up while getting into the seat. So that's number one. Item number two, engine hardware. You'll notice all of these orange marks. This is all, I think it's called Vibratite. It's gel that you put on a screw so you can tell if it's loosened itself. It's a torque marking. And I'm glad I did that because on my second ever firing up of this engine, this nut came off. This is an engine mount. It only has 4. This one fell off. The nut size is M8 by 1.25. I went to my local auto parts store. I got a pack of 4 of these with a nylon lock insert, and I blue Loctited them. That was unacceptable. The ones that were on there originally were flanged and serrated, but they were not tightened down, and there wasn't any guarantee that they were going to not fall off again. So I replaced all 4 of them. There's one under there, I promise. And on this side. All 4 of those, torqued them down. I think it was 10 or 12 Newton meters, but blue Loctite with a lock insert and the stripe to indicate that it's loosening. We do not want that falling off in flight, going through the propeller, dropping the engine, changing the angle, giving you twist. That would be a bad time. Number 3, the bolt that holds the J-arm to the harness. Well, actually I don't know if it was a bolt because I didn't have any hardware for that, which is obviously not a good thing. So I got this 10mm bolt. I believe it's an M6 thread and a nut on the other side. That has also been torque marked and liberal use of blue Loctite. That should be one of the more important things to check on your pre-flight. It's not going to drop you out of the sky, but you will probably feel a very sudden thud and like you lean off to the side. You're not going to have fun. You want to make sure that is firmly attached. And in my case, I didn't get any hardware for it. So make sure it's a high quality bolt. That one's actually, I think it's transmission related from one of my car projects, but I know it's a high grade bolt. It's not going anywhere. Make sure it's Loctited and it's not going to fall off. Number four is wiring. When mine came to me, it would have been fine as it sat, but this gear is attached to the engine. When you're starting, this whole thing rotates. Your starter's down there at the bottom, this grabs and spins. All of this wiring was much worse than it is now, and a lot of it I could push and make it touch the gear. And also the spark plug wires have a lot of extra length on them and got worryingly close to the propeller, to the point where if the boot fell off, it probably would have gone into the prop. So number 4 is wiring. Make sure all of this is tightened up, running straight, vertical, and horizontal. No slack. Things can't get into anything else. You don't want the spark plug wires going through the prop, so tidy that up before flying. Back to the motor side, number 5, fuel line. This fuel line feed from the bottom up to the bulb is larger than the inlet barb on the carburetor. So what the manufacturer did was they used a much more flexible type of tubing. This is PVC. If you know anything about gasoline engines, you don't use PVC for fuel line. So this was okay, but this discoloration was after a total of 30 minutes of runtime. And eventually it will get brittle and crack. And with the amount of vibrations that one of these things puts off, that's going to be happening sooner rather than later, and probably on a critical part of flight where you need the engine. So get rid of this PVC. It went from the carburetor down to the top of the fuel bulb. The rest of the line was fine. That's actually fuel rated line, but this wasn't. So I got the next size down fuel line. Hopefully I remember and put it in the video right here. Put it on the carburetor, and I had to stretch it out quite a bit to get it over the bulb, but I was able to get it over the bulb with no problem. So, yeah, fuel line. Number 6, I have 5 and 1. Fuel line standoffs, so still fuel line related, but these guys, there was 1, 2. That was it. That's all I had. This line was flopping all over the place. No, sorry, I think I had one more down here, I think. I replaced it with my own after I changed this line. So I added 1, 2, and replaced 1, I guess. So this was added so that the fuel line wouldn't scrape the ground when I put the frame down. And this one was added so it wasn't shaking all over the place, hitting the cylinder head, smacking the back of the frame. Number 7, engine ignition electrical wiring. My electrical wiring, you see this red and blue wire, basically stopped right here, which is a problem because in flight, the pocket, at least a side pocket to put the battery, is down here. So that's 2 feet worth of wiring. Basically just add wiring. So I got XT60 connector, split loomed it just to make it pretty. I use these are EVGA computer cable management straps that I just had lying around, 2 Velcro straps to hold along the bottom of the swing arm. You do want some slack so that your swing arm can move and you can disconnect it and tuck it in. And then just, that went up and attached to my main wiring. That's more of a nice to have, not really a critical requirement, but for me to put the battery down in this pocket and not have it unplugged when I go to sit down, that is a requirement. And just so we all are clear, this is an RC airplane engine. They typically don't use magneto ignition, they use electric ignition. So you have to have a battery for the engine to run. The spark is made from a battery. If you don't have that battery, you don't have spark, you don't have an engine, you might as well be out of gas. So keeping the battery connected in flight is pretty important. What I do is I plug this in and then tuck this connector into the pocket with it. So I have a little extra cabling for that. number 8 and 9. 8 and 9. Nice to haves really at this point, but meters here. The bottom one in blue is battery voltage. If that drops below 20, you'll damage the battery. If it drops below 12, the engine will stop running. The top one here, as it sits right now, is voltage of the battery ignition, what's going through the coil. But once the engine runs, it's actually RPM, which is just a nice to have. And number 10, hour meter. Every paramotor has, it seems, an hour meter these days. This one is actually vibration powered though. When it starts to shake, it starts recording. I mean, like violent shake for more than like 5 seconds, then it starts. That keeps track of engine hours because these coils, the spark plug wires, are sheathed. So these are grounded to reduce electromagnetic interference so that your radio gear on an RC plane doesn't get tweaked by the running of the engine. And actually, the manual for this engine says that you should have a non-metallic push rods for the throttle and choke levers up there, so that you don't transmit interference through the grounding of the engine back to your radio gear. So these are shielded for that reason, which means you can't wrap an inductive wire around the spark plug wire like most people do for RPM and a tachometer. So the separate RPM gauge I've got is actually wired into the ignition box. It's down there on the bottom, I promise. And it senses how many times that pulses a second. But then the hour meter here just bolted onto the frame, just drilled 2 small holes and stuck 2 screws in it. But that just runs and counts as it shakes. So that's really the only way you can get accurate hours on something that has shielded spark plug wires like that. Alright, that's it for this video. I really wanted to put this out quickly, and I wanted to make it short and concise because it's about safety. I'm actually releasing this before I have even flown this thing, because I realized my previous video has over 1,000 views, which is a lot because it's only been up for a few days, at least for me on this channel. So I wanted to make sure that anybody who jumped on the wagon and got one of these had safety information that they could check before they flew it. So that's why it's being put out before I even got to fly the thing. But if you want to see me fly it, subscribe. Hopefully this weekend it's coming up. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again. Clear prop. Well, it's 3 days later, and I found another thing. Number 11, the exhaust bolts. Mine are not long enough. If you look really closely, you'll see quite a bit of oil, and this is after a lot of cleaning. This exhaust tube, halfway through the last gallon of my break-in, it did this number. It was running, and then went, the bolt let go. And the reason is the bolt doesn't stick through far enough. Who decided that? Look, that's all it grabs on the head. And that thread is easily 15 millimeters deep. And what sticks out here is maybe 5. So that is an M5 by 20 screw. The original one is. And we are going to replace it. I've also got gasket paper. It does not have any gaskets, and these are not flat, so I'm going to file them down flatter, make gaskets for the exhaust, and then remount this sucker with a longer bolt. It's probably kind of hard to see, but this is after filing for about 30 seconds. See the polished off spots near the bolt holes, and then nothing in the middle, which means it's not flat, and there's a giant gap right there, which makes sense, because with the muffler on, it was spewing oil all over the crankcase and the side of the carburetor. So I want to keep going until that is starting to get polished color, and then I'm going to make a gasket for it. The other exhaust did have a little bit of gasket material left, but you can see by the difference in this one that it also was not flattened very well. We've got low spots here, 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 and here. So we're going to file this one down, build our own gasket, and I use the M30 bolts. Let me show you why. M20 versus M30. Tell me which one you'd rather have holding your exhaust on and keeping it from the propeller. Keep in mind that this piece, the thickness of it, is kind of a moot point because it's open on the back. You could have a 50mm bolt and it'd be okay. Up here on the top, you'll see the, kind of hard to tell, but the threads are not visible up through the bottom. So, oh, no, there they are, just barely. Just the tip. So, 30mm is the correct length. That's the length you want. M5 by 30, guys. Don't get this for your first paramotor. Like, seriously, go grab an Atom 80 on a Maverick or something. This thing is, it's definitely not a good first paramotor. Unless you weigh like 100 pounds and can't lift an Atom 80 on a Maverick, at which point I'd recommend go get a trike. It's super lightweight, but you're really kind of on your own. Not a great first user experience.